like Leviticus, Numbers has some difficult passages to get a hold of. The repetition, the seemingly endless detail that is there that gets repeated over and over again is sometimes difficult. But the thing that I found is that when you take time to really look into it, there are some wonderful truths for us to obtain that are really meaningful, that really speak to our lives. Like today, for example, in Numbers 8 and 9, Acts chapter 28, in chapter 9, verse 23, there's a verse that just really spoke to me and really has some terrific things to say to us. It says this in verse 23, "At the command of the Lord, they remained encamped, and at the command of the Lord, they journeyed. They kept the charge of the Lord at the command of the Lord by the hand of Moses." It's just so interesting to me how Israel can seemingly be obedient and obstinate at the same time. You read a chapter or even a few verses and things seem to change. But nonetheless, Moses takes great pains in this chapter to explain Israel's movements. When the cloud of the presence stood still, they remained encamped, whether it was a day or two or a month or perhaps even a year. Only when the cloud moved did they move. They never knew, or so it would seem, they didn't know when that would happen, when it would take place. But it was Moses who spoke for the Lord, and they obeyed whatever he said with regard to their movements. Their movements were not dictated. This is just so interesting. Their movement was not dictated by their circumstances or by their position, but their movements were directed by the Lord. He was the one that determined when they should stay and when they should go. It just speaks to us to the living of our lives. We should only move at the command of the Lord. It's when we get ahead of the Lord, when we do something when maybe we know we shouldn't, or we just go off because of our circumstance, then we usually find ourselves in some sort of a compromising position as a result of that. There is safety and there is protection under the cloud and the pillar. And that's where we need to be, in the presence of the Lord, walking in his presence. And I think about that. There were always those people who, when the cloud moved, didn't want to move. And two things happened to them when they decided they were going to stay. They liked the place they were. Maybe it was by an oasis or whatever, don't know. But two things happened. First of all, they felt the heat of the day and the cold of the night, because the cloud protected them from the searing heat of the day, and the fire protected them from the cold of the desert at night. And the second thing that happened was they became vulnerable. There were bandits, robbers, and they wanted to take advantage of the fact that there were these stragglers hanging out there. So I think there was probably quick to get back with the group. But nonetheless, there's safety and protection under the cloud and under the pillar of fire. Outside of that, there's no guarantee. It's just a great lesson for us to learn, that we move when he tells us to move, and we stay when he tells us to stay. To be in the will and the presence of God is just the greatest thing. And even there, that doesn't mean that there aren't difficulties, that there aren't trials, but in his presence there is fullness of joy. At his right hand we have the promise there will be pleasures forevermore. So let's stay under the cloud and by the fire and allow the Lord to direct our movements. Amen. May the Lord richly bless you today.